Okay, so here's something wild to think about. The average person checks their phone 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes. And yet most of us don't even realise how much of our attention is being siphoned off in those moments.
That's such a staggering number, but it makes sense, doesn't it? It's not like we're sitting down for an hour-long session every time we pick up our phones. It's those tiny, almost invisible moments that add up.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that every one of those moments is part of a much larger system. A system designed not to inform you or make your life better, but to capture your attention and hold on to it for as long as possible.
And the genius of it is that it doesn't feel like your attention is being taken. It feels like you're in control, like you're just deciding to check something quickly. But in reality, you're stepping into a system that's been meticulously designed to guide your behaviour.
That's the part that's so subtle, right? It doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like convenience, like relevance, like entertainment. But the truth is, these platforms are built to keep you engaged, not to serve your best interests.
And the reason they're so good at it is because they're not selling you anything directly. They're selling your attention. That's the real currency here. You're not the customer, you're the product.
That's such a critical point. If a platform makes its money through ads, its primary goal isn't to help you. It's to keep you there. The longer you stay, the more valuable you are to advertisers. And that's why everything you see on these platforms, every notification, every recommendation, every piece of content is optimized for one thing: engagement.
And engagement doesn't necessarily mean usefulness. It doesn't mean clarity or long-term benefit. It just means keeping you there, clicking, scrolling, reacting. Those are the metrics that matter because they're measurable.
And that's where things start to get tricky. Because when the system prioritizes what it can measure, it naturally deprioritizes what it can't. Things like meaning, depth, and clarity, they all take a back seat.
And that has such a profound impact on how we think and how we make decisions. Because if your attention is constantly being fragmented, it becomes harder and harder to think deeply about anything.
That's exactly it. Deep thinking requires uninterrupted time. You need space to let your thoughts settle, to connect ideas, to really process information. But if your attention resets every few minutes, you never get that chance.
And it's not just about thinking deeply, it's about understanding. Without that time and space, you're left with recognition instead of real comprehension. You might feel informed, but you're not necessarily clear.
That's such a good way to put it. Recognition feels like knowledge, but it's not the same thing, it's just familiarity. And familiarity can create this false sense of confidence, where you think you understand something just because you've seen it before.
But without actually processing and integrating that information, it doesn't translate into action. It doesn't help you make better decisions or solve problems. It just sits there, unconnected to anything else.
And that's where the real cost of fragmented attention starts to show up. Because good decision-making requires depth. You need to hold multiple variables in your mind at once to think about long-term consequences. And all of that requires stable, focused attention.
But if your attention is constantly being pulled in different directions, your decisions become reactive. They're short-term, emotion-driven, and often not as well thought out as they could be.
And that's not just an individual problem. It's a societal one. Because when you scale that up, you get a culture that reacts quickly but doesn't think deeply. Fast opinions, shallow understanding, high engagement, low insight.
And that creates such a strange paradox. People are more informed than ever, but they're also less certain, more connected but less focused, more stimulated but less satisfied.
And none of that is accidental. It's a direct result of how these systems are designed. They're not neutral. They're actively shaping how we think, how we feel, and how we interact with the world.
So the question becomes, how do we push back against that? How do we reclaim our attention in a world that's constantly competing for it?
I think the first step is awareness. You have to start noticing where your attention is going, especially in those moments when you didn't consciously choose to give it away.
That's such a powerful idea, because once you see the patterns, you can start to interrupt them. And once you interrupt them, you can begin to redirect your attention toward things that actually matter to you.
And that's where real control begins. Not through sheer willpower or discipline, but through awareness and deliberate choice. It's about deciding where your attention goes instead of letting something else decide for you.
And that's such an empowering thought, because your attention is finite. It's your most valuable resource. And once you start treating it that way, everything changes.
So if there's one takeaway from all of this, it's to start paying attention to your attention. Notice where it's going and ask yourself if that's where you want it to be.
Because once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. And once you can't unsee them, you can start to make deliberate changes.
Not in some dramatic, overnight way, but slowly, intentionally, over time. And that's the point. It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
And it's about recognizing that your attention is worth protecting. Because in a world that's constantly competing for it, the most powerful thing you can do is decide where it goes.
And with that, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Let's leave it here for now.
Absolutely. But this is definitely a conversation worth continuing. There's so much more to explore.
There always is. But for now, let's just focus on this. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Treat it like it matters. Because it does. If you want to learn more about yourself, visit www.modernlifeskillsacademy.com. You'll find more podcasts, audiobooks, videos, blogs, and a lot more to help you keep developing and moving forward. Thank you for listening. We look forward to you joining us next time.